Hello and welcome to Science Never Stops. I'm your host Joseph Vick, and today's topic is biology in a bottle, or terrariums. So I'm going to need to put on my gardening gear since I'm going to be working with earth and I'm going to be working with building my own ecosystem or garden in a jar. So I need to put on my handy garden hat and my gardening gloves so that we can get started. Now, the word terrarium is a Latin word, terra meaning earth, like planet Earth that we're living on and breathing on right now, and arium is sort of like the container, so earth container. And for that container, you can pick any container you want to. It can be plastic or glass. I'm actually going to be using a glass canning jar, a wide mouth canning jar from my pantry, but you can use any storage container with snap-on lid, or it doesn't even have to have a lid if you don't want it to have one. It can even be as simple as just a plastic Ziploc bag if you don't have any jars or glasses around. One thing you need to start with earth is a good base drainage layer. So with that drainage layer, we'll need something like rocks or pebbles. That way, when you have the water that we add to earth, which on earth is 70% water, and then you have the soil and the other interactive living pieces that we're going to add to our jar. So things I do recommend you need is you'll need some water, a container with water, that or a spray bottle, which I have handy. Also go out and explore in your backyard. I'm lucky to have my garden in my backyard, so I dig some things out. But you can find some random gravel or large pieces of rock material. It can be decorative, so if you wanted glass rocks or other things. A little bit of soil, so you could dig that right up from your backyard. And various things that I found in my backyard through digging and exploring. So various moss-covered rock material, some pieces of bark, and some lichen or moss that you can use to add to your earth jar terrarium. I also have some, if you wanted some extra tools, some gardening tools, and or chopsticks are very handy with maneuvering the objects inside of your jar. Now, I've already made one earlier, but I didn't use sort of land pieces. I used a water feature piece. So with this one, I have a pond in my backyard, so I pulled from it some of the algae and weeds, and I added the base layer of the rocks on the bottom. And then as you can see floating on the top is the form or the mass of the different aquatic vegetation. And at the very top I sealed it, so I had the wide mouth jar lid, and I put a piece of plastic at the top. Now I use plastic so I want it to be contained, like on the earth itself you have levels of atmosphere that protect us all, that keep and maintain the oxygen that we breathe here on earth from escaping outward into the cosmos of space. But if you want it to be more breathable, where you can have an exchange with it, you can easily use, also I have a coffee filter here, so you can have that ease of exchange. But I have the plastic on the top so I can keep it all contained inside. That's my example, so let's make one together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the jar here. I recommend having a piece of paper or a funnel handy, but I'm going to use this paper here to help me sort of angle in the materials as I put them into the jar. So the first thing you'll need is a good layer, about an inch or half inch. Ooh, well that works. Layer of gravel or rocky pieces. You can also, I'm doing this inside, but you can easily do it outside as well. It can be messy, but messy means it's fun. There we go. So I have my layer there. So that's about an inch, maybe 1.5 inches. That is great because when you're adding the water to your earth system here in the jar, you're going to need some drainage area. So when it goes through the soil, it will then collect here on the base, and then that water will go through the water cycle and evaporate again hydrating as it goes up and falls back down as it then condenses on the side, just like it's raining, collect down, and that cycle will continue just like the cycle does of the rain cycle, water cycle, here on the surface of the earth. Next, we have our rocky base layer. I'm now going to add the soil. Now, the soil layer doesn't have to be as thick. There we go. And I'm going to use my chopstick here to maneuver the soil around because my hand won't fit into that jar. So there we go. If some of the soil goes into the rocky layer, that's okay. On Earth, the layers of the earth tend to mix and mesh together, especially when they're weathering over time, and some get exposed. So there we go. And the next part is decoration. So you get to decorate your own terrarium, your own earth jar. If you want it to look like Earth itself, great. If you want it to look more alien and sort of an extrasolar type new planet, you can do that too. Put little green aliens or anything you want, different colored rocks. So I actually am going to use some natural things. So here's some piece of bark. I think I'm going to use that as decoration. Oh, it's a little too big. Let me break it apart here. Add that to the side there. Nice. Gonna add this mossy rock. I really like this mossy rock. It was covered, looked like a little hairy creature there. Add that to the front. Looks like mine's filling up rather fast. And depending on the size of your jar, it will fill up faster or slower. And I'm going to add a little bit of this lichen over to the side. And again, you can use your tools to help you out. Smash it in and around and arrange it. Terrariums have been a very popular item in and around homes, usually since around the Victorian age. They would bring them in. Another type example of a terrarium would be a greenhouse. All the different plants growing, and it creates an artificial environment for the plants to grow and thrive in colder environments. Well, I like that. I think that looks great. And once you design yours and have yours set, please share yours. Take pictures and share yours in the comments below so we can all share our work. So I have mine. So what you'll need to do next is you can either spray or add the water. I'm going to go ahead and add the water. And the rock layer can be your determinant of how much water you add. So when you add your water, add it slowly. You don't want it to splash out or overly water, because whatever water you add is going to stay inside. So just cover it so that it covers the rocky layer. There we go. And if you wanted to, add some extra squirt around the sides with your spray bottle. That'll help start the water cycle as well. Now, this is a completed terrarium. Some terrariums are left open, and when you have that interaction going on with the light hitting the plants and they start to photosynthesize, a leftover of photosynthesis, or waste product of photosynthesis, is oxygen. The oxygen will come out, you can breathe it, it'll fill the room. But to make it more of a terrarium where it's sealed and the water won't escape, because if I leave it open, over time all of the water that I added will evaporate out and this will dry up. I want to prevent that from happening. So I have cut out a plastic sheet. It can be plastic wrap, or if you want it to be a little less water coming out still, but you can use a coffee filter too if you want to. But I wanted to use the clear so I can see inside of my jar. Set that on top. You can use a rubber band or you could use tape to seal it. But I'm going to use here my lid to the jar, so I'm going to turn that lid just like that, and it is sealed. So I have created an artificial atmosphere on the inside of what is my terrarium. Now I recommend you set this by a sunny area in your home. Set it to where it's by a windowsill. And what will happen is the light from the sun will enter your terrarium. The sunlight will interact with the green. The green will then go through what's called photosynthesis, which is the act in which plants take sunlight and convert the sunlight into sugars, which then they will consume. And a waste product of that is oxygen. Oxygen which will be let out, and that's what animals like us will breathe in, and that we will then be able to live and thrive here on Earth. You will keep that in a loop inside with the water. Just like on Earth, in a rainy day, the rain will fall down from the sky in the form of precipitation. The ground will then be saturated. It'll go in through the soil, and then it'll go into the groundwater. But then that water will eventually evaporate, then go back and form clouds in the sky, and then it will start to condense and form those clouds, and then it will rain again. You won't have clouds in your terrarium, but you will have condensation form, and with help of gravity, it will rain down the sides. Water will rain down the sides of your terrarium and continue to water and continue to water cycle within your terrarium system. So that is the terrarium, or biology in a bottle, that you can have, and you can have your own mini Earth. Again, please post in the comments what your mini Earth in a jar looks like, so that we can share those together with our science community. And remember, plants never stop growing, and science never stops either.